everyone, and welcome to Digital Trust in Practice from Automation Certification, co-hosted by BSI and Vanta. So by way of introduction, I'm going to be Jani, Digital Trust Lead at BSI Singapore, where I look after our work in information security, data privacy, and AI governance. So thank you so much for joining us today. I'm delighted to be your host for this session. So in this 60-minute session, we'll explore practical ways to bring digital trust to life. We will share real-world insights on how automation and international standards can strengthen trust, reduce risk, and help organizations essentially move from compliance to confidence. So for the agenda, we will kickstart with the power of automation to build trust and compliance by Sienna and Jeff from Vanta. Then we'll move on to a presentation where I will lead standards and certifications as a bedrock of digital trust. And following that, we'll have a session, a fireside chat with Etienne Sochel from Terrascope. And last but not least, we will have a Q&A session. So thank you so much. And now I'll hand over to Sienna and Jeff for the Vanta section of the webinar.
Cool. Thank you so much. I hope everyone has had a good day. We're joining from Sydney. So we've been working very closely with BSI Singapore, so with Mona, obviously. And so we wanted to sort of bring this session together to speak about, the power of automation and then what that looks like in sort of end-to-end compliance terms. So I'm the audit partner manager for Asia Pacific, and I'm with my colleague, Jeff. I'll let you do a bit of an intro.
Thanks. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jefferson Howe. I head up the solutions engineering function within Vanta. I help customers use the power of Vanta to get compliance fast, and also how we streamline all your security requirements through the power of a unified trust platform. Nice to meet you, everyone.
Cool. So, yeah. I just wanted to sort of paint the picture to start off. This is some responses that we got from our customers. So we have 12,000 customers globally, and we did a bit of a questionnaire in 2024. And I think the results are quite interesting. So 6 in 10 organizations say that, automation of manual workflows is a priority for their strategy. And maybe you guys can also enlighten me on whether you'd be one of those 6 in 10. And 25 working weeks, like within a year, are spent on compliance workflows. So, and I'm sure that you'll get a better understanding of how we sort of reduce that workflow, but about 50%. And with 53% of organizations say that cybersecurity is a #1 concern. And I think that sort of is reflected by the stat below, which is visibility. So only 24% of companies really say that they have visibility over, third-party activities. So this is just something I wanted to sort of paint a picture by.
Cool. I'll take over this one. Thanks, Shana. So as what Shana painted, right, there's a lot of challenges every organization is facing, when the biggest challenge is like how can they achieve their compliance goals and journeys through the power of automation with less people and manual effort required, right? And Vanta's mission and vision is to help customers build and prove trust through a unified trust management platform. And as you can see in this slide, it explains how we achieve that unified trust capability through series of capabilities from left to right. How the journey of every company or organization starts off with, they want to be compliant, right? And how we help customers to get compliant is being able to support industry and local frameworks that they're adhering to, and making sure that they have a blueprint of what they need to do, such that they get an understanding of what they need, how to get to that compliance journey, right? And how we do that as well is through the power of automation, because we are able to integrate with your tech stack. We're able to map out which sets of information are mapping back to technical controls and which information are mapping back to non-technical controls. And that's how we are able to get customers be able to streamline very fast on how they can get that SOC 2 compliance as part of the journey. And once they're able to capture that information, most of the time, they will get understanding of how they are faring on their risk side of the fence. So what you can see on the yellow side is how we help the customers manage their risk within the organization through that same platform. But sometimes the risk can also be extended to their third-party suppliers, meaning like a lot of attacks right now are not only targeting your organization, but actually your supplier as well. So what we do is we're able to provide that third-party risk management capabilities. And lastly, the one thing that we do well is once you've done all the certifications, you're able to understand your risks. How do you basically publicly show that to the to the market, wherein you will use our trust center to show all those badges, those certifications, those continuous controls that you're monitoring through Vanta, and using questionnaires as a way to answer those inbound questions that you're receiving to close that next business. And how we do that is the next slide. So how we do that, as I said, is through the power of integration. It's like a 5-step process. Customers will integrate Vanta with their tech stack, and after that, automatically Vanta will collect all the signals from those information, map it out to the point that you already have a gap assessment of where you are sitting right now, what do you need to do to get compliant to that certification, right? To that your certificate you're eyeing. Then from there, given that you already are addressing those gaps, which we're gonna provide remediation steps as well. The next step is just applying those steps, those patches, those fixes. Then from there, we will be able to pull those changes in real time or near real time. And from there, once we're able to provide you that, you get that continuous assurance. And from there, you should be ready for audit. And as you can see, because everything's done through that integrated platform, through the integrations, you're able to automate 90% of the work. Now, basically, you're reducing manual effort. Hence, the cost now of getting compliant is reduced, like to the point that basically you're reducing it to the 10% of the cost. And basically, 50% lesser time, meaning that you're able to get this done in a matter of weeks rather than years or months. Then I'll pass it back to Shanna for the next slide.
Cool, thank you. So this sort of just summarizes in terms of the time cost and all of the time spent that you sort of save using Vanta end to end. Bit of a sort of bird's eye view. Obviously, it depends on the organization, but I can definitely attest to this because I used to do auditing for KPMG in Australia, and before that, I worked for the Australian government as well. And I used to do all the audits manually. So, and then also do consulting work manually again. And so having sort of a consistent view of your environment and being able to monitor that end to end, and then obviously if you're also going for an audit, the audit firm then also sort of leverages the platform, which I think you'll hear from the case study later from Terrascope, and then also, you know, been working with Mona from BSI to sort of change the way that compliance is the approach and the impact of, I guess, end to end, not only continuous compliance, but also the audit side of things too. So we include that. Yeah. If we can go to the next slide. I just wanted to provide a bit of an overview of the types of companies that we have specifically in Asia Pacific. That's the figure's probably around 1,500 now. And as you can see, it's like a whole range. So we go from startups to growth and then enterprise across fintech, software, legal firms, professional services. And these firms are using our platform for different reasons. One could be sort of third-party risk management and having visibility over that, which then also translates to sort of SLA times and responsiveness, which obviously ties back to your sort of risk register and whatnot, versus using it for, you know, getting a certification or an attestation. But either way, there's good utilization of Vanta across different sort of companies. I just wanted to sort of leave it here. And I know we probably could talk more, to be honest. And I hope that you have some questions, maybe specifically around those different pillars that we showed, and then maybe related to your business as well, and what that looks like from a sort of like audit perspective, like how this sort of end-to-end process works. More than happy to talk more about that. But we definitely have been thinking about, you know, a new way to governance, risk, compliance, making it a bit fun. So I wanted to leave you on these 4 sort of words: integrated, automated, centralized, and continuous. Like that's our core values, and we instill that within the platform. And especially, you know, Vanta is starting off in the US. We've been very heavy on localization, and that's why a partner like BSI in Singapore, catering for all those Singaporean businesses that use Vanta, is really important. And obviously having frameworks and localized frameworks and customer feedback on the platform itself is like, we love that. And I know that Jeff loves that because him and I collaborate on that all the time. But yeah, I'll leave it there from me. Jeff, I don't know if you wanted to add anything, or we can just wait till sort of questions.
I think this is what we are providing. We're disrupting the market in a new by doing a new way in GRC, where we're going away from traditional means, Excel, spreadsheet driven, to a more systemized and also like integrated approach, right? Because in a day, we want it to be streamlined within the company, and also making sure that we're not adding more toil and unblocking, again, for startups, revenue, and for bigger enterprises, doing things in a more consolidated, platformized, and centralized manner.
Cool. I'll pass on to Mona to talk about standards and certification.
Great. Thank you so much, Sienna and Jeff. That was really insightful, and definitely I'm sure there'll be some questions for you guys at the back end of this webinar. So for this section, I'll give a perspective on the Singapore landscape, as well have a deeper dive on how international standards can be a key part of our journey, our collective journey towards building trust in the digital world. So I just wanted to set the scene here, and Singapore, I think, is a really good case study for that. Due to the digital world just is expanding so rapidly, and businesses relying more heavily on technology than ever before, this comes with significant risks, right? And so these numbers are only a sliver of the wake-up call that a lot of businesses have dealt with. And just as just reading off the screen, right, 44% of Singaporeans would stop doing business, stop engaging with the company after that company has dealt with a data breach. So that is 50% of your market gone overnight. So that's really significant. And PDPA, their enforcement are up to 1 million Singapore dollars. And in the first half of 2024, Singapore recorded over 500,000 of cyber threats. So trust is no longer intangible. We see it in real numbers. It affects customer retention, brand reputation, financial health. So real things that drive a business's bread and butter. So it's really, really measurable. And if we just go to the next slide, just wanted to highlight a few things of how the landscape is rapidly evolving. So there's super powerful forces here in the risk landscape, and the one, of course, is cybersecurity. And attackers are faster, more coordinated, and now they use AI to target vulnerabilities, and that has become so top of mind for our customers. And the second item is the tightening regulations from on the privacy point of view worldwide. So it's not just Singapore PDPA, but EU GDPR. I mean, these are all just a start, and this type of compliance is really spanning jurisdictions, spanning sectors. And in the ethics space, and I think this is particularly to do with AI, right? I mean, as we adopt machine learning into our business, automation, we face new risks about algorithm bias, data misuse, questions of accountability. And so to succeed, all organizations might address these dimensions as a start, because security without privacy and privacy without ethics really won't build real trust. And so they're all really critical in managing your stakeholders. And if we just go to the next slide, just for simplification purposes, we've just established this framework. It also helps simplify the conversation. I mean, at the base is security. If your systems are vulnerable, nothing else really matters. So this includes things like data encryption, breach response, access controls. Next comes privacy, where people want to know how their data is being used. They want the ability to control it. And then finally, ethics, where real trust is really earned through responsible use of data, inclusion in AI models, clear accountability, and it goes on, right? And we can call this the digital trust stack. Each layer really supports the next, and if one is missing, the structure becomes unstable. And this can be mapped back to standards, which is what we spearhead and we really love to talk about, and that's on the next slide. And the thing is, we don't have to create this stack from scratch. There are best practices out there. There are internationally recognized standards that we can leverage, that give us the blueprint to then go on and build our systems on top of. So the baseline one that we see that is quite popular in the market is ISO 27000 Information Security Management Systems. It really helps you establish and maintain a system in the information security world. Then it extends to privacy. That standard will be a standalone one in 2026. And this stack goes all the way to the AI dimension. The newest one to this whole stack, ISO 42000, really thinking about AI governance, which is really important in the world today. And on the side, you'll see that there is business continuity. That's all about how do you prepare your business for disruption, which is also a really vital part of trust. And so these frameworks, they really turn best intentions to auditable practices. And it's how we really move from compliance all the way to confidence. If you can go to the next slide, please. So, and this is a question that we get from organizations, and apart from what we've kind of already shared so far, is why should we pursue certification? And so there are 4 key reasons here that we tend to think about. The first one is all about demonstrating that commitment. It shows that you're not only just compliant with local privacy laws, but you're being proactive about protecting your systems, your data. Your certification really sends that powerful message that to your customers that you take their trust, their information really seriously. And then the second one is all about mitigating risks, right? And ISO is a risk-based framework, essentially, all up. And so from cyber threats to ethical lapses, really standards provide that framework to proactively identify, proactively assess, reduce risks through your risk registries and otherwise before they escalate into breaches, before they escalate into reputation damage. The third one is all about building your stakeholder confidence, improving it. And here it's, whether you work with governments, enterprise customers, regulators, certification really helps to provide that credibility, right? It shows you're aligned with international best practices, not just your internal policies, and it is a verified outcome. And the last one, which I think is as important, is that it drives operational efficiency. And so here, certified systems generally tend to be better structured, more consistent, more resilient, and fewer surprises, and therefore smoother operations. This isn't just a checkbox exercise, right? We really think of this as a strategic investment to your business operations, how it competes in the world, how it grows trust at its core. If you can move to the next slide, please. So the next couple of slides are just all about kind of what does that look like in practice, right? This is the how, the journey. And so here we outlined kind of the plan, train, implement, certification, and maintain, right? Just the essential big picture steps to kind of go through this journey. Now, of course, implementing ISO management systems really starts with a clear, documented process tailored to, of course, your organization's information security or AI needs. And to succeed, you really have to understand the standards requirements, the standards expectations, right? And so this is where, planning is really, really core. And then afterwards we think about, okay, you can plan, but you also need to understand it from a competency perspective. And we'll go into more on that in the next slide for a more Singapore perspective. Implementation, right? You can leverage a platform like Vanta to assist you with implementation, to make that implementation a little bit faster. And then when we go through the certification process, right, there is a stage 1, there is a stage 2, whether looking at documentation review, and stage 2 is all about implementation audit. How did you actually showcase implementation, talking to different stakeholders. And finally, there is a final review. And if everything goes smoothly, a certification itself. And now we think of sometimes we think of certification as the end, but in BSI, we think of certification as just the beginning, because there is that ongoing maintenance, ongoing improvement process that every company needs to do in order to stay relevant, in order to have long-lasting effectiveness and ongoing compliance. Next slide, please. So yeah, so this is giving you more from an SME perspective. So what we usually talk with our customers is, if you want to go through a digital trust journey, of course, there is that awareness piece in which BSIOs has webinars, white papers, a lot of giving back to the industry. And then we do collaborate with Skills Future Funding in terms of having trainings under those funding buckets. And so this is a really cost-effective way to get your staff competent against these different schemes. And then the next step, in which we've collaborated with CSA to create these schemes, is CSA Cyber Safe Essentials, a Cyber Trust Mark that are modeled against ISO 27000, and is a great first step for an SME to take in order to go towards an ISO certification, as well as SS 714, which is a new standard under data protection that has been launched in a Singapore standard scheme. And this, of course, are ways in which to get to an ISO compliant place in which then you can leverage to get market access into whatever growth strategy your company has. Next slide, please. Yeah, so I mean, what can we do today, right? This is all great and everything, but where can we start? I think that is a question I get a lot. So here we've just put together 4 action items that you can take away from today, so the first one is map and assess your current state. So understand your current posture really showcases what your current risks are, what your current gaps are, and you know, what do you want to do with that information, right? The second item is choosing the right standard is really essential, depending on what the strategy for your company is taking. What do you need to embark with? What is aligned with how you are looking in your next 5-year plan? The third one is all about building your governance in-house, upskilling your teams, leveraging experts like BSI to assist you to really understand the standard. And ultimately, look to number 4, look to implement the standards requirements and clauses within your company, look to certify against the internationally recognized scheme. Yeah, so this is kind of the 4 steps that we think would really be helpful for you to start. And we believe that this approach really helps future-proof your operations, win stakeholder trust, and I can go on with all the different reasons of why standards and certifications are really important. But bottom line, leveraging global standards provides you repeatable, auditable practices that scale with your organization. Yeah, so thank you so much. This is the BSI presentation, and I'd love to welcome our guest, Etienne Sochel from Terrascope, who will be here as a fireside chat. So Etienne is head of strategy and finance at Terrascope. And so thank you for being here, Etienne. It's really great for you to join us. And so maybe to kick things off, could you tell us a little bit more about Terrascope, a little bit more about what you do?
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me today. So Terrascope is a Singapore headquartered company, pretty young. We're still a startup. We're like four years old. We're a corporate venture backed by Olam, who is very well known here, which is a listed food and agriculture multinational, also based in Singapore. And what we do, basically, we are a climate decarbonization platform, a SaaS platform. And we mostly help large enterprises around the world to measure and reduce their carbon emissions. So it's a lot about data and trust, how we collect data from our customers, transform it so that they know what are their carbon emissions and how they can plan ahead for reducing and meeting their net zero targets. So we work with customers around the world, large enterprises, as I said, like think of Kellogg's in the US, Mitsubishi in Japan, Sime Darby, Olam in the region, so kind of big players. So definitely data, trust, integrity have always been core to our business.
No, that's perfect. Thank you so much for that. And so just as you stated, right, I mean, Terrascope operates in a space where credibility, data integrity are so core and so critical to your business, right? So can you talk a little bit more about how trust is, plays in within your business model and the idea of trust by verify? Does that resonate with your approach of doing business?
Yeah, maybe I'll start with an actual example we faced a year and a half ago. So one of the customers we were trying to acquire was a direct competitor to our parent company, Olam, which is also one of our customers. And so it was very important for us to prove that they could trust us with their data. There wouldn't be any data leakage or anything. And we had processes in place. We were following standards so that they would be okay to be our customers as well. And that was really a proof for us that our customers being able to trust us with their data, but also being able to later on use that data for their external auditors to verify the data that was transformed thanks to us, and not like a black box, if you want, for their own ESG reporting and so on. So it was really important for us. And it's like exactly the bread and butter. We're a data company. We deal with data. So this is like super crucial for us.
Yeah. No, I think that definitely illustrates the right scenario. And so because you guys are an SME, right?
Yep.
How did you view kind of compliance and certification in the early days? I mean, you are funded by a very large company. However, did you feel like it was more of a necessity, an enabler? What were your views there?
It was actually both. Because we made the decision very early to go for kind of a niche, which is mostly food and agriculture customers, whether it's manufacturer, retailer, it's the entire supply chain, as well as large enterprises. We had to go through a lot of RFP processes.
Yeah.
And you get a questionnaire very early and you have to tick the boxes and you can be disqualified very early. So for us to start talking to these large customers, we had to tick some boxes, right? And so for us, it was like an enabler first. We had to be certified for ISO 27001. Then later we went for SOC 2, SOC 3. So for us, it was a must. But at the same time, it became a growth enabler because we're still a small company. We have only a few people. And without Vanta and as a more automator for us, but also like BSI for the certification, we had to go faster. We couldn't lose time too much for each individual RFP because we need to scale, right? And we didn't want to hire too many people for this compliance exercise. So it had to be part of our DNA, if you want, in terms of security and everything, but also having like the processes in place, being kind of second nature for the entire company and the people for us to grow faster.
Yeah. No, that sounds really great. And you mentioned, the two kind of partners on this call. I mean, you have automation through Vanta, you have certification through BSI, but how do they complement each other and kind of strengthening that trust posture?
So actually, we started with working with the BSI first because we needed the certification. And that was like, we had to have the stamp to prove our customers we were ISO certified. But soon enough, we realized that we would need to be able to scale the business. So we needed combination of operational trust, if you want, and the strategic trust from BSI. What really helped and is working well, having these two partners is, for example, with Vanta, we use the Trust Center. That is really amazing in how customers can directly go to our website, go to the Trust Center page. They can see live all the tests and controls in place, see the certification. But that would mean nothing if we didn't have a partner like BSI to certify us. Actually, BSI is going to come for a surveillance audit later this year in early December.
Yeah.
So and we're going to work with Vanta as well, right? So it's going to be a three-way of working together. And and we know because we've done it before, it really accelerates the audits as well by making things more streamlined to be able to use the Vanta as a tool too.
Thank you so much for that. So I'd love to hear from you if you could give one piece of advice to SMEs, kind of starting the digital trust journey. What would it be?
I would say the obvious: start early. It's not an easy journey, and when you're a young company, SME, you don't have lots of resources, so you always have to choose your priorities. And actually, I was more on the fence at the beginning compared to the rest of the people to start so early, but I'm now convinced we made the right choice. Actually, I was pushed by my sales. They were saying, we need it, we have to do it. My tech side as well, because of the security, etc. So they were pushing, and we made the right call. It's just, start early, and the best is to plan properly. Because as I said, it takes time, it takes resources. So you want to make sure you're not burning the rest of the company because of being all over the place, right? Working with the BSI really helped us in terms of prioritization, having a framework to work with to get on the right path for certification. So I would say the other advice is to find the right partners to work with. Because it's really important. You can't really make mistakes, right? When you're a young company, obviously you will make mistakes, but you have to course correct as soon as possible. So yeah, my two advice would be start early and finding the right partners.
Thank you so much, Etienne. It makes us so happy to hear, that you're happy with us. So I think, those are for my few questions for you. Maybe if you had anything else to add, or we could open it to the floor. What would you like?
Yeah, please go ahead if there are any questions on there.
Yeah, no. So thank you so much for the real life scenario. I think that was super productive and insightful for me as well. I think I learned a little bit there. So with that, right, we welcome questions from the floor. And we'd love to hear your thoughts, answer any questions, even if it's commentary, that's very, feel free to add those items. At the same time, we'll be launching a feedback form. So as we answer questions, and then in the chat, we'll let you know when that feedback form closes. But yeah, so I think we'll launch a Q&A as well. Now I'll just open that and see if there are any questions at the moment.
I actually have a question for Etienne, if I can ask you. Yeah. Thank you so much for taking the time. I think it's really awesome to it's good to hear from vendors and different sort of auditing firms and things like that. But then hearing a real life example sort of bring those two elements together and provides a bit of a use case. But I agree in terms of starting early, not only in terms of having an auditor or an audit partner that understands your business. I think that's number one, and a consulting firm as well, but then also a platform like Vanta for centralization. If you grow too big, it actually becomes harder to implement, but then more things, then it just keeps sort of, snowballing, and then things happen, and then you have downtime or whatever it is. But how did you guys make that decision? Because I think that's a tough call, especially for startups, because there's a bit of investment there. So what did that look like for you guys?
Yeah, so one of the discussions we had early basically we had a champion internally, someone that was really pushing for us to use Vanta. But one of the trigger, and because I'm the finance person, I had to do my work, which is calculate my ROI. And I'm referring back to your previous slide, Shanna, about the kind of opportunity cost and etc. It's exactly this. Like you have a cost to get such platform, to get your ISO certification and so on and so forth. But you have to look at the benefits that you are getting, like additional revenues, etc. But also what you would be eventually spending by not using automation and processes like that. And actually, after running the numbers, working with the team, talking to Vanta people as well, it became very obvious, even though we were a young company, right? Because the trade-off would be to potentially get more people, and it adds up pretty quickly. The other thing that helped us make the call was seeing how other companies like us, especially in the SaaS world, were using certification partners, Vanta for the automation, trust center, etc. And just as a third party going there, click and download the report. It seems so easy. We're like, okay, we want to offer the same experience to our customers.
No, that's awesome. I feel like I actually wish more companies, and I think a lot do, but I feel like you're like the perfect startup like approach, because I feel like people do get bogged down in terms of that ROI and whether it's true or not. But when you've especially worked in the industry, like it is like when you've actually setting up a whole compliance sort of end to end, and then you want to expand your business as well, like having that function to then scale is so important, because otherwise you can't scale. So it's quite, especially in this sort of market, it's quite fast paced. So no, that's awesome.
And as Mona was saying earlier in one of your slides, right, about the I think Singapore data, like 44% of customers would change supplier if there was any data breach, or I can totally rely on this. We cannot afford this. So because of that, we have to be like a trusty partner, right? So Vanta, BSR are really helping us being on the right path and maintain it.
And I think that's in terms of like that trust and security. And Jeff and I have been speaking about this a lot, and Jeff talks a lot of companies. And one question that we get asked, and from auditors as well, is in terms of the security of the data that's held within Vanta. And we make sure, like in terms of that stat that Mona showed, like we work towards making that not happen. Like, security is basically the core of what the platform is, as well as BSI. So yeah, I think it's quite interesting. Like you think that, it's just a compliance platform, but actually there's a lot of things that go into it to ensure that there's security as well as efficiency.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think we're all kind of resonating with each other. So I think that's great. And I wish you a rest of the day, a lovely day.